you would please help me welcome Gary Brackett.
Good morning, everyone. That's awesome. Well, I am excited to be back at 7001 West 56th Street. This was my address for 10 years of my life. I still have mail getting shipped here. So every once in a while I get a present from the mail, and I think it's a game check that I forgot to cash, but it's not. It's typically someone wanting to get an autograph, but it's all good. I'm gonna tell you a story. Last night, my son has a PS4. Anyone have kids in the room? So he has a PS4. He's 8 years old, so he's plays wrestling. And he asked me to play with him, and of course I obliged. And I'm going and I play wrestling with him. I don't know any of the wrestlers who are on this game, but of course, like a competitive dad, I go out and I want to pick the guy with the highest overall score, right? And it just reminds me back in the day when I was a big wrestling fan growing up. And I think one of the first time I ever cried as a young teenager was when I found out that wrestling wasn't real. How many guys remember when they found out that wrestling wasn't real, right? But one of my favorite players, or one of my favorite wrestlers growing up was Ric Flair. How many guys remember Ric Flair? How many people in the room remember? Do you remember what Ric Flair used to do? Right, 2 claps and a woo. So to get us started this morning, I want to give us 2 claps to the Ric Flair. So everyone know what a Ric Flair is, right? All right, so 2 claps to the Ric Flair. Are you guys ready? Oh, it didn't sound like you guys are ready, man. Man, if my son was playing against you last night and he had that type of excitement, he'd have been excited. So are you guys ready? Yeah. All right, 2 claps to the Ric Flair. Ready? Go. Woo! All right, one more. That felt good. Man, I'm almost ready to play. All right, one more time. 2 claps to the Ric Flair. Woo! All right, well, good morning. Man, I tell people I have 1 hit left in my body, and that hit is for my daughter's first boyfriend. I figure when he comes to the door, I will hit him and the word will travel. But I'm excited to be here today. Like Meg said, I was an ambassador for a few years during my times with the Indianapolis Colts, and I understand the importance of not only eating healthy, nutritious meals, but also exercising for at least 60 minutes a day. Now with 3 children, I'm a coach in my community, so it's something that I encourage our kids to do on a daily basis. But today I want to give you a keynote about fueling greatness and what I did over my career as a Colts player, as a Scarlet Knight, and now as a business owner to fuel my greatness. And I'll share some tidbits with you all today. So Rutgers University is where I went to college at. And I can remember the year was 2000, and we were playing against Virginia Tech. And in 1998, we won 1 game. So we started off the 2000 season, and we won back-to-back games. I mean, we just beat Buffalo 54-0. So we're excited. We thought like all the hard work and everything that we put in the offseason, like it was gonna come to fruition. Like this is it. We're gonna be on the national stage. We're playing Virginia Tech in Lynchburg, right? Michael Vick, number 8 in the country. Like we're excited. So we're in the locker room. We're ready to go. We're getting fired up, right? We're 2 claps and Ric Flair, right? We're fired up. So our coach, it was on CBS. So the CBS comes and tells our coach, like, hey, coach, we're sorry to do this to you, but you know, Virginia Tech's a pretty big deal. Michael Vick, we're gonna send you guys out there early and then wait 8 minutes to introduce them when it's live on TV. So our coach is offended, like, no, we're not doing it. So he goes into the locker room, he's fired up, and he's telling us, and this is Coach Terry Shea, he says, he told us what they want to do at CBS, and he's not gonna do it, and we deserve to be out there on this field. And they asked, are you guys ready to go out there and play today? We're like, yeah. He's like, are you guys gonna give them hell today? We're like, yeah. And then he lost that. We said, is this a must-win game? We would say, yeah. And he says, no, this isn't a must-win game. We only need to win 6 games to make it to a bowl. And the air in the room was just deflated like. So my job today is not to deflate the air in the room, is to bring the air in the room. Needless to say, we lost that game 49-0. Michael Vick had about 4 touchdowns. But it was just one of those games and one of those moments where leaders mean so much. So the people that are in this room today, there's strength in what you all do. And I go over later how the speed of the leader determines the rate of the pack. But what you all do, people are looking at you, and you can encourage, your entire team by your actions. So for me, I was a walk-on at college, did not have a scholarship. And after that season, I got a call the next season, still walk-on, still paying tuition, from my father. My father called me and he said, son, I got some bad news to share with you. And I was like, what's going on? He said, the tuition bill came in the mail. So I'm like, okay, like pay it. Like, what do you, like, I don't have any money. Like, you're a parent, right? Money grows on trees. Like, pay the bill. What's going on? He said, son, we refinanced the house for the second time and there's no more equity left. We have no more money to pay for your college tuition. And I was like, man. And at that moment, like, I was so upset. But now as a parent, I realized how tough of a conversation it was for my dad to call and have me. So I go right to the coach and I tell my position coach, like, hey man, I had to leave school. I don't have a scholarship. And he's surprised. At this time, I'm playing backup linebacker. I'm a special teams player. And he's like, what? You're not a scholarship player? What are you talking about? Like, I need you on Saturday. I was like, hey man, I'm sorry, but I have to go. So he's like, man, let me talk to the coach, see if I can get you a scholarship. No promises. I was like, all right, man, but you know, I have my 1989 sky blue hatchback Honda Excel outside, so I might be going by then, but you know. So on that Sunday, I have a meeting with Coach Terry Shea, the same guy who deflated the room about the Virginia Tech speech. I'll go inside of his room, and he says, hey, so I hear you have to leave college, you don't have any money. I'm like, yeah, coach, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And then he goes on to say, like, hey, I just want to let you know we're going to recruit players that are bigger and better than Gary Brackett. I'm like, look, man, like, I'm leaving. Like, you don't need to kick me when I'm going. Like, I get it. Like, you did recruit me. He was like, hey, but sit down, man. He said, one thing that sticks out to me is that did you give it everything you have? You give me 100%. I don't have to worry about you in the classroom. I don't have to worry about you in the workout room. Everywhere you go, you're going to give me maximum effort. He said, and I appreciate that. And he said, and honestly, I wish I had a whole team full of Gary Bracketts. He said, because of that, I'm going to give you a scholarship. Man, talking about the feeling I had getting a scholarship. And the next call was to my father. And I told him, like, Dad, I got a scholarship, I get to stay. So he's excited, ecstatic. So now I go inside of the weight room. And the weight room is probably similar to our new weight room at the Colts facility. It's huge. If you ever get a tour, you should definitely go on one. Huge weight room, about 80 guys are working out in this room. I'll go run to my friends, and I'm high-fiving, telling them, hey, guys, I got a scholarship. I get to stay. And there's one guy came up to me, right? His name was Wesley Robinson. He was 6'3", 235 pounds, 6% body fat. But the only problem was Wesley, he looked like Tarzan, but he played like Jane, right? So wasn't a very good football player, but did a great job in the weight room. So he asked me, like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys talking about? I said, hey, Jers. I said, I get to stay, man. I got a scholarship. Like, I get to stay. And he looked at me and he said, and these next moments changed my life. He said, scholarship? He said, you should worry about starting. And I was like, starting? I was like, man, didn't you just hear? I just got a scholarship? Like, I get a meal plan? Like, are you kidding me? I don't have to ask nobody to swipe me into the lunchroom no more. So, but that night, the only thing I could think about is like, man, you should be a starter. And I was like, man, even though he played like Jane, he was still a starter. So I'm like, what would it mean for me if I was a starter? Like, what would that look like? I said, I would probably work out different. I would probably no more come in there like, all right, we got 5 reps. I'm going to do 4, maybe 3. Okay, I should eat healthy 3, 4 times a day, right? I should probably go to sleep at a good time at night, wake up early. I should probably read. I should probably review the game notes. I should study film. All these things as a starter. So I made up my mind at that point that I was going to be a starter. That I was just begin to have championship habits that made me a starter. And before that moment, and it may touch some people in this room, I had this scarcity mindset. And I had this ideal that for some reason, like, success wasn't for everybody. Success was for the counties or the schools that had the resources. Or our success was for the people that looked like this. Our success was from the organizations and the programs that have been running for forever. Surely not my program that's just about to start off. We're not the ones that be successful. And no, that's a myth. The reality is there's no monopoly on success. And if you make a decision today that you're going to be successful at this program, you can be a success. And I made that decision at that day. I finished my career at Rutgers. I mean, this is a kid who, again, 1989 Hyundai hatchback, filled to the brim. I finished my career as a two-time MVP, and now I'm in the Rutgers Hall of Fame. And I did all that because I made a decision that there was no monopoly on success. I made a decision that I wanted to be a starter. I made a decision that I was going to enforce championship habits in my lifestyle. Now, one thing about habits, I've been doing a lot of research on this topic, and how many people heard that a habit takes 21 days to build? We heard this before. It is, in fact, a myth. How many of all had New Year's resolutions, tried to do something for 21 days, and it didn't work, all right? And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't take 21 days, it takes 66 days. Now, some of you guys are in the room are probably like, oh, that's why I started something that didn't work, right? Because it doesn't take 21 days, it takes 3 times longer than that. And you have to be committed to the process. And the amazing thing about it is, once you commit to that process, you can begin to see a result. But when is the best time to start? Now. Not in the future, not next week, not I'm gonna hear all this great information and this is gonna be great next year, start of the school year, we're gonna get this thing off, we're gonna kick it off the right way. No, the best time to get started on your goal, on your future is today. It's right now making a decision to get started. I do a lot of reading, in one of these books, there was an example of a pottery class. And in the pottery class, the professor said, okay, in the left side of my room, everyone on this side of the room, your grade in this class will be determined by the weight of the pottery projects that you make. By the weight. So no matter what they look like, by the weight of the pottery projects, I want you guys to get a grade. Okay? On this side of the room, your grade is going to be made by how beautiful your best project is. So what happens? On this side of the room, what do? You go to work immediately, right? You mean it's just the weight? I can make anything? So first day of class, you're back making pottery, right? You're back making pots. On this side of the room, what do? Oh man, it has to be the best. We're gonna start a think tank. We're gonna start a mastermind. We're gonna go to museums. We're gonna read all these books. We're gonna take all these class trips. Right? We want to be the best. In order for the best, we have to start right. So they take all the time. They don't touch any of the pots until 3 weeks left in their class. So at the end of the class, who you think makes the most and the best pots? The people that got started, right? And it just, this thing in football where I've learned that an imperfect plan executed will always be superior to the perfect plan not executed. The imperfect plan executed will always be superior than the perfect plan not executed. It's amazing. I coach the same son who plays WrestleMania, also plays flag football on Saturday, and I have the honor to be his coach. So very interesting, and I feel like I got the biggest bullseye on my back, everyone out there. Our team is called the Chargers, right? I didn't want my name to be a part of it. We're the Chargers as a team sport. So everyone else in the league, they call themselves, when they play the Chargers, they call them the Brackett Busters because they want to bust our bracket, right? We're undefeated, needless to say, but every week, these guys and their CEOs and their IT professionals, and they have all these plays and X's and O's drawn for these kids, and I just sit back and I'm just like, what are you doing back there? Like, the kids don't understand what you're saying, right? You don't even understand what you're saying. The formation isn't even correct. That's a legal formation, right? And it's like, it doesn't work. Like, it's like a double reverse flea flicker pass. And then he's upset that my guy ripped his flag out. And I'm just looking like what do you expect? Like no amount of plans that you can perfect is gonna help these kids. Like, it's all about execution. It's all about starting where you are right now and doing what you can do best. And if you do that consistently, you win. Coach Dungy, it was amazing one of our games, we lost back-to-back games for the first time. It was my second season with the Indianapolis Colts. We lost back-to-back games. And typically when you lose, they just won, so they're happy. It's a happy locker room, right? But when you lose, everyone is quiet, right? You're quiet until like that first Wednesday practice, right? Because you're like, all right, am I going to be around? Because like when you lose, typically people get cut. So on Monday morning, when we lost back-to-back games, the whole meeting room was full. 12 o'clock meetings, typically 11:50, right, for guys that went to good schools, right? 11:58, 11:59, right? Some guys like right 11:59, 59, right? Some guys are like playing it close, right? But that day, 11:40, whole room full, quiet. Coach Dungy comes into the room and he says, if we were in New England, 5 players would get cut. If we're in Buffalo, 4 players would get cut. If we were in Cincinnati, 3 players would get cut. And on down the list. He said, today, I'm not going to cut anybody. And it said the same group of men who just won 16 games in a row in the beginning of the year had just lost 2 games in a row. So what we're going to do, and I hear what you're saying, we don't have enough calls, we need more trick plays. We're not adding anything. In fact, we're going to subtract from our game plan. Defense, instead of 6 players, you got 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to out-execute better than our opponent. We're going to do what we do better than the other team does what they do. And for 9 years playing with the Indianapolis Colts, that was our motto. It wasn't any trick plays. It wasn't any out there. It was outworking teams every single week. Every single week, it was the Indianapolis Colts versus the Indianapolis Colts. And if we took care of our business, if we practiced and prepared like we were supposed to, then we'll see results on Sunday. And it wasn't by adding new things. It's about taking what we had and getting the most out of it. So that execution is so key. So just to tell you a little bit, obviously, we all know the Super Bowl championship, 2007 against the Bears. Any Bears fans in the room? Sorry to hear that, guys. You guys won last night, though. We did. You did. Commercial real estate broker, certified franchise expert, Stack Pickle. Anybody been to a Stack Pickle? The sports bar in Indianapolis, the #1 sports bar in Indianapolis. And I also got my MBA from Washington, D.C. Funny story about my MBA, when I retired from the NFL or transitioned, at the time, I was home, I do what people that retire do, right? I'm golfing every day. The problem is I'm an awful golfer, right? And I would come home from the golf course, I had a couple adult beverages, and my wife, who's a physician, or I like to call her my retirement plan, she's going to work for her second 16-hour shift. So my daughter, Gabrielle, who's 5 at the time, she looks at me and she says, Dad, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, what? Like, you see this ring? You see this house? Like, you kidding me? But essentially, she was right. She was 2 years old when I retired playing football. She had no idea what her dad did. And the only matter was, what are you going to do now? I went back to school and I got me MBA because I feel like we all have our toolboxes. And we all have tools in our toolboxes. And for the longest period of time, we typically grab the same tool. And for years and years and years, my tool of choice was the hammer. And the problem with only having a hammer is that every situation looks like a nail. And you guys that work inside the school system, every situation is not a nail. And sometimes you need a protractor. Sometimes you need a calculator to figure out how many days you're going to suspend this kid. Just kidding, you all have great kids. But you need different tools in order to solve different problems. So going back, get my MBA, is that what happened for me? But ultimately, what I major in is GSD. I get stuff done. I know some of you guys, I don't know what you think the S is for, but I get stuff done. But today, when I think about the term fueling greatness through sustainability and innovation, it talks about the championship team that I played on in 2007. And the reason we were champions wasn't because of that night, February 6th against the Chicago Bears. It was because all the years leading up to that and all those championship habits that we developed in order to give us the opportunity to perform on that type of stage. So I want to give you some of those habits that we did and that we learned that led us to be great. And that first habit, and it's so important because we have leaders inside of this room, and it's this notion that the speed of the leaders determine the rate of the pack. And I can remember 2003 or 2004, during our off season, we had our defensive linebacker drills. And during the drills, we had our starter, Rob Morris, who's a great guy at BYU, but he wasn't really a practice guy, right? He went out there and practiced, but that wasn't his thing, right? So David Thornton, who's now still with the Indianapolis Colts, after our first practice, when we went to our team session, without a sweat, he said, never again. He said, from now on, I'm leading our group through our workouts. And when he took over workouts, I mean, we were drenched in sweat the next day. And he said to the group, the speed of the leader determines the rate of the pack. You guys follow my lead. And that's what you guys are asking your school, your program, to follow my lead. So in order to do that, you have to hold yourself accountable. And one of the biggest things when I was playing football that I learned, that there's two different ways to hold yourself accountable. One is being capable, and that's following directions and specific orders. And there's a lot of people like that, and that's great. But in order to take the next step, that next leap, it's about that capacity. It's about ability to use the contingency plans and tools to be able to solve problems. See, when you're out there in real world, when we're out there on Sundays, you could throw the whiteboard out the window. Because that play that you drew up, that guy that was supposed to be right there, perfect in a circle, he won't be there, I can assure you of that. But if you know exactly where you're supposed to fit on that guy, who saw the game last week? Quentin Nelson, right? He pulled around, beautiful play. Marlon Mack's following his lead block. And Quentin knew I have to block this guy. No matter if he had to block him inside or outside, he knew exactly what his goal was. Now the guy saw Quentin and made a very wise business decision by falling down. I don't blame that guy, right? But Quentin knew he's a phenomenal football player because of that capacity that he has. You see him on Sunday just hunting. He did his job. He knows what he's doing. He sees someone else, come get some, knocks him down, right? You want people like that on your team. You want to be that type of leader where you have the capacity. The next thing, and this is the ability that we all have to do, and that's we have to recruit other team members. We can't do it all by ourselves. We can't do it all by ourselves. My firm belief is that people build brands. People build programs. People build systems. You can't do it alone. How many people in this room has gotten to where they got to alone? Not one single one of us. And if for your program to be effective and efficient, you have to recruit different type of team members. Now, there's a difference in team members that you can recruit, right? You got those team members that are content, right? We all know people that are content. Hey, man, I'm just showing up, man. You know, I get paid no matter if I do anything extra or anything. Like I get a check. I'm content. I'm good where I'm at. Those are people you probably don't want on your team, right? They're not going to be good for your culture. There's people that are compliant. Hey, I show up. This is what my job description is. I'm going to do my job description. I'm going to do what you told me to do, right? I'm capable, but don't ask me for anything else. I'm just here. I'm just compliant. Committed. Committed is strong. You can win with committed. Committed people will get the job done. But the next group of people that are compelled, people that believe in the story, people that believe in the why, people that believe in what the program is here to establish, what it could do for not only your school, but also your community, those are the people that you want to rally around. Those are the people that's going to be innovative. Those are the people that are going to bring ideas. Those are the people that's going to meet with the farmers and do all the great things that are going to make this program be successful. So those people are compelled as the people that you want to attract on your team. The next slide, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. Anybody follow Tony Robbins? One of Tony Robbins' famous quotes is, it's not about your resources, it's about your resourcefulness. And so many times we get caught up or we talk ourselves out of situations or we talk ourselves out of success because we think about our resources. We're thinking about the time, we think about money, technology, contracts, experiences. And those are all true. A lot of people with resources has a better advantage to be successful. But again, there's no monopoly on success. If you look at your resourcefulness, if you look at your creativity, if you look at your innovation, your determination, your passion, your mental toughness, your willpower, all those things, those are intangibles. What are those things you can bring to the table that no one else has? We are special. We all have a unique, special talent and ability inside of each and every one of us that if we put to full use, we're going to be unstoppable. But typically, the only person that's stopping us is us. And it's this whole imposter syndrome that we're thinking to ourselves, who am I to lead this group? Well, I didn't have a healthy breakfast. Who am I to come in and tell these kids that they need to have a healthy breakfast? Well, I didn't exercise. I didn't grow up exercising. Who am I? You can change, right? You can actually change. And the beautiful thing about life is you don't have to be perfect for people to follow you. You don't have to be perfect for people to follow. You don't even have to be an expert. Like this whole notion of, hey, you need 10,000 hours and then you're expert and then you're qualified to be a follower. My 11-year-old daughter has my 8-year-old, my 6-year-old, and sometimes me following her, right? She is the smartest person in my house. I can assure you that, right? Is she an expert? Does she have 10,000 hours? Absolutely not. But is she bullheaded? Is she strong, opinionated? And like, hey, this is the plan of action, and we're going to make it work one way or another? Absolutely. And that's what you need. The next one, run through the wedge. How many of us are familiar with a wedge? So wedge in football is now illegal. 10 years too late. My career wasn't illegal. I was a wedge buster, right? But I was able to make the Indianapolis Colts team because I wasn't afraid to run through the wedge. Now, what's the wedge? Some of you guys are asking, like, what's this wedge? The wedge is similar to what you saw. That's a small wedge. Those guys are 40, 45 numbers and 55. Wedges are usually guys with 70s and 60s numbers, right? The big uglies. So imagine 3 Quentin Nelsons all together, arms locked, running downfield, right? That's a wedge. And before, the coach on the special teams would say, hey, kick returner, you're going to get the ball and run behind this 900-pound wedge. And my job, I was R3. So if you look at the film, 1, 2, 3, R3, right? And because I was the fastest guy there, your job when you get down there, your job is to hit the wedge. It's a pretty dumb job, if you ask me, right? But I knew, because the coach told me, if you're able to play special teams, and more importantly, if you are unafraid to hit this wedge, you will make the team. And you know how many guys were still afraid to hit the wedge? So many people were afraid to hit the wedge. So I said, man, like, my family is counting on me. All right? I got people that are depending on me. And you telling me the only thing that's keeping from me and my goals, me and my dreams, is me running through this wedge? Man, I got to try my luck. So special teams play, kickoff, sprint all the way down the field, 900-pound wedge, full speed, right into the wedge. Robert Mathis comes around the end, he makes the tackle. We stopped them on the 20-yard line. They drive down the field with about 15 seconds left. They go to kick a field goal. They miss. The field goal is short by 5 yards. Now, if I was unafraid to hit that wedge, if I'd have ran around the wedge, if I'd have slowed down on the wedge, they'd have got the 5 yards they needed, and they'd have made the field goal, and they'd have won. Now, why is this important? We all have wedges in our lives. And what's going to determine our success is how we hit the wedge. That conversation that you need to have with your spouse. Are you going to hit the wedge or are you going to run around it? That moment that you saw your daughter and you thought to yourself, maybe I should correct that behavior. Are you going to hit that wedge Or are you going to run around it? In school, that conversation with your coworker, with some of your children that are at school, are you going to be brave enough and courageous enough to hit that wedge, or are you going to run around it? Your life will ultimately be dictated by how many wedges that you're not afraid to hit. And every day you have a choice. Like, will this be the day that I'm going to hit this wedge? And how intimidating and how scary the wedge is, I promise you, after you start hitting it over and over again, it starts breaking down. Like there's always this thing when you pounding a rock and you're pounding a rock. Eventually, what happens to that rock? It breaks. The same thing with a wedge. If you hit it over and over again, and this whole thing about success, this whole thing about getting to your goals, getting to your dreams, I think Jay-Z is the one that said it. He said the genius thing that we did is we didn't give up. The genius, is it the books you read? Is it the people that you surrounded yourself with? Is it what you invested in? No, I just didn't give up. I just didn't give up. So all of us, don't be afraid to hit the wedge. The last thing, and I'm going to leave you with something after this, but for me, I believe in creating your championship roadmap. Your championship roadmap. When I played with the Indianapolis Colts, we had 16 games in a regular season, so we broke it down into quarters. Every quarter, 4 games, we would determine where we're at in our success. So I took this when I left the game, and I do this in my daily life. Every 90 days, right, every quarter, I have an ideal of what I want to do. Who do I want to become? Who do I need to be strong for? What type of wedges do I need to stop running from and I need to attack head on? How about my health and fitness? What do I want to be like? When I talk to successful people, the reason that they're successful, and then when I talk to unsuccessful, and the reason they're unsuccessful is this whole thing about attention. All right? Are you intentional about your life? Are you going to say, I want to lose some weight? What? Define some weight. 10 pounds. 10 pounds in how many days? How are you going to do it? What's going to be your exercise program? Who are you going to have to encourage you? So all these things, that attention to detail, that little stuff, is how you get to your big goal. So we all create our championship roadmap. We're going to leave here today. We're going to get a bunch of tools, a bunch of exercises, a bunch of wisdom from the group. A lot of people have done this program before. There's some people that are starting off. We can use all those things. And the great thing about success champions, one, there's no monopoly on it. 2, it's repeatable. So some of the programs and systems that you're going to hear today that have worked in the room, you don't have to change it. That same program will work for you. We had this meeting with all my general managers at my restaurants. There's 10 of us, and we all meet around the room. And one of my biggest things is it's not an advantage of having 10 stores if we don't take advantage of it. So all those best practices, all those things that we learn from one another, it's not an advantage of us getting together in a room as advisors, as leaders, if we don't share our wisdom, if we don't share our knowledge. So that's what's awesome about getting together. That's what's awesome about meeting, using some of these new ideals, right, and bringing them back to your school, your organization. So like I said, I'm going to give you that championship roadmap. In order for you to get a copy of that, sent to your email, you can text GREATNESS to 317-526-4243, and you'll get a copy of your own championship roadmap. You can send it to me in our Facebook group, and I can comment on it and make sure I encourage you and get you going on your way. So, extremely excited for you all today. Like health and fitness is something that is a daily topic in the Brackett household. And I think the new age is the most vital thing that we all have is our health. And I think you guys starting this program and becoming advisors and helping out your school, man, the results that you can have and the impact that can be felt can be enormous. So I'm excited for you all, and hope you guys have a great day today. Thank you.